those animals express that distinctiveness. And it gets pretty surreal, you know, those early April mornings, and they're turning them like Macbeth, you know, toil and whatever, boil. But that's, of course, the steam rising up from the compost. When the pigs are done, of course, this is what they leave. You know, this is the boil. I don't know what these cow pies look like in Michigan, but ours look like this. So our problem is not that we don't have the resources or the cleverness or whatever, or the genetics. The problem is that we don't have the mental capacity between our ears to access the resources that we already have. We've got to quit being victims and realize the answers are between our ears and to create value there. All right, so when it's all done, then it comes out as compost, already nice and aerated and fluffy, non-odoriferous. And we add some trace mineral to it, a little bit of wood ashes, and then it goes right back on the field to feed the soil bacteria at the appropriate time, so that the forage again can be more efficient at getting solar energy converted. Then the chickens can go in there. This is the way the pigs are in there, so that the structure gets multiple use, multiple critters. And when the pigs are done, then they go out into pig pastures. And these pig pastures are roughly quarter to half-acre pastures. They get local GMO-free grain, that's genetically modified organism free, all right, non-GMO. So they get, because pigs are omnivores, so they get their salad bar, plus they get the grain, and they get to pick the salad or the grain, and every time they finish that feeder, they go into a new paddock of salad bar, diversified forage plants that they get to eat, gambol, exercise, get fresh air, sunshine, and run around in and fully express their pigness. Now, sometimes they even sing opera. But this idea is created again as a mimicking of nature. This is the way they leave it. It's pretty disturbed. You have to understand, though, that that disturbance is the critical key to freshening up and creating environmental succession. So Einstein said, before you have construction, you must first have destruction. If here on campus they decided to build a new building, for example, it doesn't start all beautifully landscaped and nice clean walkways and all that stuff like we see around campus. No, it starts how? Like a mess. You know, there's clay, and everybody's complaining at everybody, and administrators are yelling at each other about what the building should look like. And you know, if you build a house, you know, as they say, if a marriage can withstand a new constructed house, it can withstand anything. There's disturbance there. The Egyptians have a metaphor for the phoenix rising out of the ashes. From the ashes come the phoenix. Everybody likes to focus on the phoenix, but we don't like to talk about the ashes. If you're going to grow a garden, you don't just take carrot seeds and throw them over your shoulder in the lawn and say, oh, now we have a garden. You have to take a spade and a hoe, and you're going to have to do a little bit of disturbance. Disturbance is the beginning of successional innovation, of freshening up, of new germination. That's the way it is in everything in life. I mean, having a baby is kind of disturbing. But who wants to live in a world with no babies? You know, they're innovative, they're creative, they have new ideas. And by the way, if I may go where angels fear to tread, that's the problem with both the Bush and the Obama bailout plan, is that it did not allow the kind of economic disturbance necessary to bury some old paradigms in ashes, but rather artificially propped up the scallywags and prolonged the day of reckoning by inadvertently prolonging the status quo. I'm always surprised that gets that reaction. It gets it from everybody. That's really cool. Okay. But see, when you have a principle that spans economics, ecology, sociology, theology, all those things, and it all works for all of them, you know you're onto some truth. I mean, that's the point of this. So the succession is important to exercise the ecology to go to a new place, a new successional place of better carbon sequestration, of more aggressive solar metabolism into biomass, using the pigs as the disturber for a very short period to create the healing that ultimately grows the grass that concentrates the carbon, the new biomass, to gradually make a biological cathedral. Okay? Animals are the disturbance tools. If we just have static ecology, you know, the reason I belabor the point is because so many in the radical environmentalist agenda it says the best thing we can do for our ecology is to take all the humans off the earth. What we're here for is to massage these natural templates into more productivity than they would under just fire and volcanoes and whatever, all right? And so that's what we bring to that equation. And so the pigs do that. Now, when the pigs are done with the pig pasture, then they go into the adjoining forest. You see, 600 years ago, all of these forests had 2 million herds of buffalo running through them. You know what a herd of 2 million buffalo running through an area leaves it looking like? Disturbed! Captain Jim Bridger, when he went through the Black Hills of the Dakotas, mapping it out, the first American diary presented out there, said they got behind a herd of buffalo, and if they hadn't been carrying oats for the horses, they'd have all died because it took them 7 days to get to a blade of grass. They couldn't get out from behind this herd of buffalo. The Mississippi was called Old Muddy for a reason. The beauty is that now, using modern technology with microchip energizers and knowing what we know now about biological growth systems, we don't need to do that anymore. We can use these herbivores even better than they were on their own. And so we don't have fire and we don't have buffalo anymore. What we do have, though, are pigs. And so we use a very simple insulator of nylon rope around trees, so it doesn't scar the trees and doesn't put any hardware in the trees, with a single strand of high-tech electric fence, and we can zigzag that from tree to tree out through the woods, and in no time encircle a 3 to 5 acre forest finishing glen, turn the pigs loose. They fatten on acorns and starchy roots of briars and brambles and weedy type species to reopen the park-like look of the mid-Atlantic forest when the first Europeans arrived here, when it was being managed by Indians, fire, and herbivores. Is that cool? So what this is massaging that landscape into its original dynamic production. And what this does is then makes a new layer of forage below the trees, cleaning out the brambles, widening out the trees, making a new level of forage, so that we're getting way more carbonaceous, we're getting way more photosynthetic activity occurring per square yard, intercepting more sunlight so that not a ray of sunlight touches the soil. And it actually is making more biomass than it would be in a sterile forest with leaf duff. Compare the amount of biomass being created here compared to a sterile leaf duff situation. So what we need to be doing is going into all of our national parks and all of our forest lands and all of Appalachia and the mesquite ranges of Texas and the pinyon pines of Colorado and the aspen groves of wherever, and we need to be going through there with periodic disturbance to metabolize all of the berries, mast, pine nuts, all the things that nature is producing. The point is that when you back that camera up from this, you realize there's not one single reason for a confinement animal feeding operation. Not one. No justification for it whatsoever, using the high technology of electric fencing. Then when the pigs are done, they just walk home. And as Michael Pollan said in Omnivore's Dilemma, that probably face all the animals have a wonderful life and just one bad day. Okay. Then you go to the perennial prairie polyculture. And essentially what we're trying to do here is mimic how nature built soil. Nature built soil with herbivores and perennials. And so we look at these herbivores and perennials in nature and say, what are the principles that they work symbiotically to create these soils? How did they do that? And what we find are 3 things, and I've got them properly alliterated for you in homiletic fashion so you can remember them. There are 3 M's. The first M is they're moving. They don't stay in the same place. They're always moving to a fresh piece of ground, moving to new grass, moving away from yesterday's lounge area. The second thing is they're mobbed up. You know, you look at the wildebeest on the Serengeti, Cape buffalo in Botswana. Herbivores in nature are always mobbed up. You know why they're mobbed up? Protection. Because the camera pans around in the bushes, there's a lion, a tiger, something like that. So they're mobbed up for protection, and that mobbing up makes them graze aggressively, less selectively, and fill that 4-legged portable sauerkraut vat quicker. Okay? And then the third thing is they're mowing. They're not eating dead cows like the U.S. told us to feed for 30 years. I mean, isn't it kind of amazing that the very government agency that took farmers like me to steak dinners for 30 years, teaching us this new science-based kind of feeding cows called feeding dead cows to cows, now tries to put itself as the repository of food safety? Give me a break. You know, the reason that we didn't endorse feeding dead cows to cows on our farm, which, by the way, is what gave us bovine spongiform encephalopathy, commonly known as mad cow. Thank you. All right. The reason that we didn't do that 30 years ago, when all the cow colleges, land-grant universities, and scientific community said, "Come on, join the high-tech, science-based bandwagon. Here's the new answer." The reason we didn't do it was not because we didn't like the U.S. It wasn't because we were Luddites. And it wasn't because we didn't like science. It was because there is no template in nature in which an herbivore eats carrion. See, it is philosophy, it is value systems, it is convictions and belief systems that build a protective ethical parameter, hedge of protection around the cleverness of the amoral scientists. And all the liberal arts teachers who jump up and say, "Yay!" Because see, at the end of the day, just because we can doesn't mean we shouldn't. See, we're pretty clever people. Humans, we're pretty clever. And we can create things and invent things that we can't spiritually, emotionally, physically, or mentally metabolize. And so it is our ethical framework on which that creates boundaries around our innovation that protects us from creating these decades later, "Oops, maybe we shouldn't all have done that." See? And so if we will look to nature, to the Creator's design as a template first, see, that then guides design down the road. And that's why liberal arts education is so wonderful. So, here we go with the cows. So how do we then duplicate this template? Well, so we use electric fence. We move the cows every single day to a new paddock using electric fence as our accelerator, brake, and steering wheel on that 4-legged sauerkraut vat, managing them in high density, short duration, again, short disturbance, periods of time to mimic the natural patterns in nature using simple electric fence. There's the Energizer. This is very high tech. Very easy to handle cattle this way. One person can move thousands of head very easily just with baler twine because they're so trained. So we're putting up and taking down the fence paddocks daily to gradually build a bank of forage ahead of those animals to allow the grass to go through its juvenile fast growth production phase, metabolizing more biomass. The bottom line is that in our county, where the average cow days per acre is 80 cow days per acre. Cow days with 1 cow length a day, all right? Our county is 80, that's our average. On our farm, our average is 400, and we haven't bought a bag of chemical fertilizer or planted a seed in 50 years. There is nothing that could compete with the massaging and the nurturing of these biological mimicking systems. Nothing. Not genetic modification, not technology, not science, not nothing. So we want to use technology and science in order to better massage and nurture these biological principles. Well, what do you do in a drought? What do you do in the winter? Okay, so we're gradually stockpiling this forage ahead of them. Here we are in a drought in August. We have 100 head on a quarter acre per day. 100 head on a quarter acre per day. This is called mob stocking, herbivorous, solar conversion, lignified carbon, sequestration, fertilization. And if every farm in America